The yellow taxi pulled up to the curb just as rain began to fall. Behind the wheel sat a man in a worn baseball cap and faded jacket. Nobody recognized him. Nobody knew that David Wesley, CEO of Wesley Global Industries, was driving his own taxi tonight. "Wesley Towers, downtown," the passenger said, sliding into the back seat. "And hurry." David glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. The passenger was Joshua Webb, his best friend of 20 years, his business partner, the man he trusted with everything. Joshua was on his phone, speaking in hushed tones. He didn't even look at the driver's face. "I'm telling you, it's almost done," Joshua whispered into his phone. "David has no idea. By next week, Wesley Global will be mine. 20 years of playing second fiddle is finally over." David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart pounded so hard he thought Joshua might hear it. But he kept his head down, his cap pulled low, and he drove. This was supposed to be a simple experiment. One night pretending to be a regular taxi driver to understand the common man's struggles. His wife Jennifer had suggested it after he complained about losing touch with reality. Before we continue with this shocking discovery, if you are a kind person and love stories like this one, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Also, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love connecting with our viewers around the world. Now, back to David's devastating revelation. 3 months ago, David Wesley stood in his corner office on the 45th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. On his desk sat photos of his wife Jennifer and their twin daughters, Emma and Lily, both studying at Harvard. "You've changed," Jennifer had told him over breakfast that morning. "You don't see people anymore. You only see numbers and deals." "That's not fair," David had protested. "When was the last time you had a real conversation with someone who wasn't wealthy?" she asked gently. "When did you last understand what normal people worry about?" He couldn't answer. That evening, Jennifer made a suggestion. "Remember when we were young? You drove a cab to pay for business school. You said those late-night conversations taught you more about people than any textbook." David had laughed. "That was 30 years ago." "Maybe you need to remember," she said. The idea stuck with him. A week later, he bought an old taxi license under a false name. He had a yellow cab restored. He even rented a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood. "This is crazy," his assistant Rachel said when he told her. "You're a billionaire playing dress-up." "It's research," David insisted. 1 month. I want to understand the people who use our services, who work in our buildings." Rachel sighed. "What about Joshua? He'll think you've lost your mind." David shook his head. "Nobody knows, not even Joshua. Especially not Joshua." Joshua Webb had been his roommate in business school. They'd built Wesley Global together from nothing. Joshua handled operations while David managed strategy. They were brothers in everything but blood. But lately, something felt off. Small things. Joshua taking private calls during meetings, documents disappearing from David's office, whispered conversations that stopped when David entered rooms. Jennifer noticed it too. "Maybe I'm paranoid," David had admitted. "Joshua has been my best friend for 2 decades. He's godfather to our girls." "Trust your instincts," Jennifer advised. Now, driving this taxi with Joshua in the back seat, David's instincts screamed danger. Joshua continued his phone conversation. "The board meeting is Friday. I've already secured 8 votes. Once David signs the partnership restructuring agreement tomorrow, the trap springs shut." David's blood ran cold. "He still thinks we're 50-50 partners," Joshua laughed quietly. "Poor David, always so trusting. That contract he's signing, hidden in the fine print is a clause that makes me majority owner. His lawyers won't catch it. I made sure of that." The rain pounded harder. David's mind raced. Tomorrow. He was supposed to sign partnership papers tomorrow. Joshua had presented them as a formality, updating language for tax purposes. "What about his wife?" the voice on Joshua's phone asked. David could barely hear it over the rain. "Jennifer? She'll be devastated, but she'll get over it. She married David for his money anyway. Once I'm in charge, maybe I'll give her a consolation call." Joshua's laugh made David's stomach turn. They were approaching Wesley Towers. David's hands shook as he gripped the wheel. "After 20 years of watching David get all the credit, all the glory, while I did the real work," Joshua continued, "justice is finally coming. This company should have been mine from the start. I'm the one who runs operations. I'm the one who makes the hard decisions. David just smiles for cameras and makes speeches." "Does anyone else know?" the voice on the phone asked. "Just you and my lawyer. Oh, and Patricia. She's been helping from the inside." Patricia, David's head of HR. She'd been with the company for 15 years. "Patricia's been perfect," Joshua said, "feeding me information, doctoring reports, and after I take over, she'll be promoted to CFO." The taxi pulled up to Wesley Towers. The building gleamed in the rain. David's name in gold letters above the entrance. "Keep the change," Joshua said, tossing two $20 bills over the seat without looking at David. As Joshua exited, David watched his so-called best friend walk into the building they'd built together, the building Joshua was stealing from him. David sat in the taxi, rain drumming on the roof, his entire world collapsing. 20 years. 20 years of friendship, partnership, and trust. All of it a lie. His phone buzzed. "Jennifer, how's your taxi driving experiment going?" David's voice cracked. "Honey, I need to come home. Something's happened." "David? What's wrong?" I'll explain when I get there. I love you." 30 minutes later, David walked into his real home, a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Jennifer took one look at his face and gasped. "What happened?" David collapsed onto the couch. "Joshua, my best friend, he's betraying me." Jennifer sat beside him as he explained everything. The conversation he'd overheard, the contract, the planned takeover. "Are you absolutely sure?" Jennifer asked. "Maybe you misheard." David shook his head. "I heard every word. He's been planning this for months, maybe years." Jennifer held his hand. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," David admitted. "Part of me wants to confront him immediately, but another part," he paused. "I need to know everything. How deep does this go? Who else is involved?" "So you keep driving the taxi," Jennifer said slowly. David nodded. "I keep driving. I learn everything. Then I act." "This could destroy you emotionally," Jennifer warned. "Finding out how many people you trust are actually betraying you." "I'm already destroyed," David said quietly. "Now I need the truth." The next morning, David called his office. "Rachel, I'm working from home today. Tell Joshua I'm reviewing the partnership papers with my lawyers. I'll sign them next week." "But Mr. Wesley," Joshua said it was urgent. "Next week," David said firmly. He hung up and looked at Jennifer. "Time to learn who my real friends are." Over the next 3 days, David drove his taxi 12 hours each day. He picked up employees from his own company. He listened to their conversations. What he learned broke his heart. On Tuesday afternoon, he picked up 2 junior executives from Wesley Global's marketing department. "Did you hear? Webb's taking over," one said. "Finally. Wesley's been coasting for years. Webb actually knows how to run a business. I heard Wesley's wife is leaving him too. Apparently she's been having an affair." David's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Jennifer, having an affair? It was absurd. They'd been married 28 years, but Joshua was spreading that rumor. Wednesday evening, David picked up Patricia, his head of HR. She was meeting someone at an expensive restaurant. As they drove, she made a call. "Joshua, it's me. Wesley postponed signing. We need to pressure him more." David kept his eyes on the road, his cap pulled low. "I don't care about his feelings," Patricia continued. "We've worked too hard for this. Use his daughters if you have to. Remind him they need trust fund access. He'll sign anything to protect them." David's daughters. They were threatening his daughters. Thursday morning brought the most painful discovery. David picked up his godson, Joshua's son Tyler, from the airport. "Wesley Towers," Tyler said, getting in. He was on his phone immediately. Dad, I just landed. Yeah, I can't believe Uncle David still doesn't know. I know. It's hard pretending to like him, but the money's worth it. Just a few more days and we're rich. David had held this boy when he was born. He'd paid for Tyler's education, attended every birthday party. All of it meant nothing. That evening, David sat in his study with Jennifer. He'd compiled everything, recordings from his taxi, documents Rachel had quietly pulled, and bank records showing money flowing between Joshua and several board members. It's worse than I thought, David said. He's bought half the board. Patricia's been feeding him confidential information for 2 years. Even the company lawyer is involved. Jennifer studied the papers. What's your plan? David's jaw set. The board meeting is tomorrow at 10. Joshua thinks I'll sign the papers beforehand, making him majority owner. Then during the meeting, he'll call for a vote to remove me as CEO. And if you don't sign, he has enough board members to push through a hostile restructuring anyway, or so he thinks. David pulled out another folder, but Joshua made one mistake. What's that? David smiled for the first time in days. He forgot that I'm not just the face of the company. I actually know how to fight. Friday morning dawned cold and gray. David Wesley dressed in his best suit, Armani, 3-piece, perfectly tailored. He looked at himself in the mirror. The man looking back had aged years in just 1 week. You ready for this? Jennifer asked, fixing his tie. No, David admitted, but I don't have a choice. At 8 o'clock, David's private driver pulled up, but David waved him off. Instead, he got into his yellow taxi one last time. One more ride, he told Jennifer. I need to clear my head. He drove through the city, past the buildings he'd helped develop, through neighborhoods where his company employed thousands. He'd built something real here, something good, and Joshua wanted to take it all away. At 9:30, David pulled up to Wesley Towers. He parked the taxi in the underground garage where executives kept their cars. His real car, a Mercedes S-Class, sat in his reserved spot. Next to it was Joshua's Porsche. David walked to the elevator, still wearing his taxi driver jacket over his suit. Security guards nodded at him, not recognizing their own CEO in the worn clothes. On the 45th floor, Rachel nearly dropped her coffee when she saw him. Mr. Wesley, what are you wearing? Long story, David said. Is everyone here? Joshua arrived an hour ago. He's been in the conference room with Patricia and the lawyers. Sir, he seems very confident. I bet he is, David said. Rachel, I need you to do something for me. He handed her a USB drive. During the meeting, when I give you the signal, play what's on this drive. Can you do that? Rachel nodded, though confusion filled her eyes. Of course, sir. David walked toward his office. Joshua intercepted him in the hallway. David, there you are. Joshua's smile was wide, fake. How had David never seen through it before? Ready to sign those papers? David looked at the man he'd once called brother. Joshua wore his best suit, too. His hair was perfectly styled. His confidence radiated. He thought he'd already won. Actually, Joshua, I want to talk about them in the board meeting. Joshua's smile faltered. That's not the plan. We agreed you'd sign this morning. Plans change, David said calmly. See you in there. He walked into his office and closed the door, leaving Joshua standing in the hallway, uncertainty crossing his face for the first time. At 10 o'clock, David entered the conference room. 12 board members sat around the long mahogany table. Joshua sat at the far end, Patricia beside him. The lawyers were arranged on one side. David took his seat at the head of the table. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Let's get started, Joshua said quickly. David, if you'll just sign the partnership restructuring agreement, we can move to... I'd like to discuss something else first, David interrupted. Joshua's jaw tightened. This is urgent, David. So is this, David replied. He looked around the table. How many of you have been contacted by Joshua in the last month about voting to remove me as CEO? The room went silent. Several board members shifted in their seats. Joshua laughed, but it sounded forced. David, what are you talking about? I'm talking about betrayal, David said quietly. I'm talking about conspiracy. I'm talking about my best friend and business partner of 20 years trying to steal my company. That's absurd, Joshua stood. David, have you been under stress? Maybe you need a break. Sit down, Joshua. Something in David's voice made Joshua freeze. Slowly, he sat back down. David opened a folder. For the past week, I've been conducting an investigation. What I found shocked me. Joshua has been systematically undermining me, bribing board members, and planning a hostile takeover. This is ridiculous, Patricia interjected. Mr. Wesley, I think you need to be quiet, Patricia, David said coldly. Your involvement will be addressed shortly. He turned to the board. Joshua presented me with a partnership restructuring agreement. Hidden in the fine print is a clause that would transfer 60% ownership to him. My lawyers reviewed the original draft you sent them, Joshua. They found nothing suspicious. But I had another firm review the final version you gave me yesterday. Very different documents. Joshua's face had gone pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Rachel, play the recording, David said. Rachel connected her laptop to the screen. Joshua's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. I'm telling you, it's almost done. David has no idea. By next week, Wesley Global will be mine. 20 years of playing second fiddle is finally over. David watched Joshua's face as his own words condemned him. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. The recording continued. Joshua's plan laid out in his own voice. The bribed board members, the manipulated contracts, the lies about Jennifer, the threats about David's daughters. When it ended, silence filled the room. This is taken out of context, Joshua said desperately. David, I can explain. Explain what? David's voice was sharp. Explain how you tried to steal my company. Explain how you manipulated people I trusted. Explain how you threatened my family. He stood, his hands shaking with controlled anger. 20 years, Joshua. 20 years I called you my brother. I trusted you with everything. You were godfather to my daughters. I put your name on this building alongside mine. Joshua stood too. You want to know the truth, David? Fine. You've had everything handed to you. Rich family, connections. You breezed through life while the rest of us struggled. I worked for everything I have, David shot back. No, you made speeches while I did the real work, Joshua shouted. I'm the one who built this company. I'm the one who put in 18-hour days while you played golf with investors. You're just a pretty face, David. This company succeeds despite you, not because of you. The words hit David like physical blows. If you felt that way, why didn't you leave? Why stay and plan this betrayal? Because I built this too, Joshua said, and I was tired of being in your shadow. Tired of people calling it David Wesley's company, when I'm the one who actually runs it. David looked at the board members. Those of you who took money from Joshua, I want your resignations by end of business today. Patricia, you're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Patricia stood, face red with anger. You can't do this. I absolutely can, David said. You conspired to commit fraud. I have recordings, emails, and bank records. You're lucky I'm not pressing charges. He turned to Joshua. As for you, our partnership agreement includes a clause about fiduciary duty. You violated it spectacularly. I'm buying you out. You'll receive the minimum required by law and not a penny more. You can't do this, Joshua said, but his voice wavered. I already did. My lawyers filed paperwork this morning. Security is currently removing your belongings from your office. David pressed a button on his phone. You have 30 minutes to leave this building. After that, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Joshua stared at him. For a moment, David saw something in his former friend's eyes. Regret? Shame? But it passed quickly, replaced by cold anger. You think you've won? Joshua asked. You'll fail without me. This company will crumble. Maybe, David said quietly. But it'll be my company that crumbles, not yours. And I'd rather fail on my own terms than succeed with a traitor. Security entered the room. Joshua looked at the board members who'd supported him, but they avoided his eyes. Finally, he looked at David one last time. "I really was your friend once," Joshua said, "before the jealousy ate me alive." "I know," David replied. "That's what makes this hurt so much." Joshua walked out, flanked by security. Patricia followed, still protesting. The conference room slowly emptied until only David and Rachel remained. David sat down heavily. His hands were shaking. His heart pounded. For a moment, he thought he might actually collapse. "Mr. Wesley?" Rachel asked worriedly. "Are you okay?" "I will be," David said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "For what it's worth, sir, you just saved this company. Joshua would have destroyed everything you built." "I know," David said, "but that doesn't make it hurt less." He sat alone in the conference room for 20 minutes. Through the windows, he could see the city stretching out before him. Somewhere down there was his yellow taxi, symbol of the experiment that had revealed the truth. His phone buzzed. "Jennifer." "How did it go?" "It's done," David typed back. "Joshua is gone. Patricia is fired. Half the board resigned." "Are you okay?" David looked at his reflection in the window. "Ask me in a year." That evening, David drove his taxi one last time. He didn't pick up passengers. He just drove through the city, processing everything that had happened. His phone rang. Tyler, Joshua's son. "Uncle David?" Tyler's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what my dad was planning until it was too late. The things I said in the taxi, I was just repeating what he told me to say. I didn't mean any of it." David pulled over. "Tyler, I know you probably hate me now," Tyler continued, "but you've been more of a father to me than my own dad ever was. I was stupid and greedy, and I'm so sorry." David closed his eyes. Tyler was 23, manipulated by his own father. "Come to my office Monday morning. We'll talk." "Really?" Tyler sounded shocked. "Your father made his choices," David said. "You get to make yours. We'll talk Monday." After hanging up, David sat in his taxi, watching the city lights. His phone buzzed again, an email from his company lawyer. "David, 8 board members have offered to resign. What do you want to do?" David thought about it. Those board members had been weak, susceptible to Joshua's manipulation, but they weren't evil, just human. He typed back, "Tell them they get one more chance. One. They betray that trust and they're gone." His phone rang again. This time it was his daughter, Emma. "Dad? Mom told me what happened. Are you okay?" David smiled despite everything. "I will be, sweetheart." "I'm coming home this weekend," Emma said. "You shouldn't be alone right now." "You have exams." "Family is more important," Emma interrupted. "Lily's coming too. We'll be there tomorrow." After they hung up, David started the taxi and drove toward home. Past Wesley Towers, now truly his again. Past the expensive restaurants where Joshua had plotted against him. Past the neighborhoods where real people lived real lives. He thought about the past week. The pain of betrayal. The shock of discovery. The necessity of confrontation. But also, his wife's unwavering support. His daughter's love. Tyler's chance at redemption, Rachel's loyalty. He'd lost a best friend, but he'd learned who his real friends were. When David pulled into his building's garage, he looked at the yellow taxi one last time. This battered old car had taught him more in 1 week than 20 years of success had. It had shown him that titles and money meant nothing without character, that true friendship was rare and precious. He'd driven this taxi to understand common struggles. Instead, he'd discovered an uncommon betrayal. But he'd also rediscovered himself. David Wesley walked into his penthouse where Jennifer waited with open arms. She held him as he finally allowed himself to grieve the friendship he'd lost. "It's over," he whispered. "No," Jennifer corrected gently. "It's just beginning." 3 months later, David stood in front of a packed auditorium. 500 employees of Wesley Global Industries watched him with curious eyes. Word had spread about Joshua's betrayal. Everyone knew the company had nearly been stolen. Now they wondered what came next. I've called this town hall, David began, because I owe all of you the truth. And more importantly, I owe you an apology. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 3 months ago, my former business partner attempted to steal this company. He succeeded because I'd stopped paying attention. I'd stopped listening. I'd become so disconnected from the people who actually make this company work that I didn't see the betrayal happening under my nose. David walked to the front of the stage. For the past week, I've been reading every employee survey we've conducted in the last 5 years. You know what I found? People tried to warn me. Complaints about Joshua's management style, reports of intimidation, concerns about Patricia's handling of HR issues. All of it was there. I just didn't listen. He pulled out a worn baseball cap, the same one he'd worn driving the taxi. Some of you may have heard rumors about me driving a taxi. They're true. For 1 week, I disguised myself as a cab driver. I wanted to understand regular people's struggles. Instead, I learned something more important. I learned that I'd forgotten how to connect with people who didn't already have everything. David held up the cap. This taxi driver experience taught me humility. It taught me to listen, and it accidentally revealed the conspiracy against me. But more importantly, it showed me how far I drifted from the values that built this company. He put the cap down. Today, I'm announcing changes. First, I'm cutting my salary by half. That money will fund a new program for employee advancement. If you have an idea for innovation, you'll have access to resources to develop it. The auditorium buzzed with surprise. Second, I'm implementing an open-door policy. Once a week, any employee can schedule time with me directly. No managers, no gatekeepers, just honest conversation. David paused, making eye contact with people throughout the room. Third, and most important, every executive in this company, including me, will spend 1 week per year working frontline positions. If you work in our warehouses, we'll work there too. Customer service, we'll answer phones. If we're going to make decisions that affect your lives, we need to understand your lives. Rachel stood up from the front row. Mr. Wesley, can I say something? David nodded. Rachel turned to face the employees. 3 months ago, I watched our CEO discover that his best friend betrayed him. I watched him lose half his board of directors. I watched him face a hostile takeover that could have destroyed everything he'd built. Her voice grew stronger. But I also watched him show mercy to people who didn't deserve it. Tyler Webb, Joshua's son, was involved in the conspiracy. Mr. Wesley gave him a job anyway. 8 board members took bribes. Mr. Wesley gave them second chances. That's the kind of leader we need. The applause started slowly, then built. David felt his throat tighten with emotion. After the town hall, David walked back to his office. But he didn't take the executive elevator. He took the regular employee elevator, squeezing in with a dozen workers. Mr. Wesley, is it true you drove a taxi? A young woman asked nervously. It's true, David confirmed. What was it like? Someone else asked. David thought about it. Humbling, eye-opening, painful, but necessary. On his desk, David found a folder from his investigation team. He'd hired them to trace exactly how deep the conspiracy went. What he found was disturbing. Joshua had been planning the takeover for 5 years. Bank records showed he'd been siphoning money through shell corporations. Patricia had deleted thousands of emails. 7 board members had received payments totaling over $2 million. But the folder also contained something else. A ledger showing that Joshua had gambling debts totaling $8 million. Casino receipts, loan shark agreements. The conspiracy wasn't just about jealousy and pride. Joshua was desperate. David's phone rang. His lawyer. David, Joshua's attorneys are threatening to sue for wrongful termination. On what grounds? David asked. They claim you fired him without cause and that the recording was obtained illegally. David sighed. The recording was obtained in my own taxi, which I own. There's no expectation of privacy in a commercial vehicle. And I didn't fire him. I exercised a buyout clause in our partnership agreement. I know that, But they're going to make this ugly. Let them, David said. I have nothing to hide anymore. That weekend, David kept his promise to spend time with his family. Emma and Lily were both home from Harvard. Jennifer had planned a quiet dinner. But during the meal, Emma brought up something unexpected. Dad, I want to drop out of school. David nearly choked on his water. What? Not permanently, Emma clarified. I want to take a year off. I want to work for Wesley Global, not in management. I want to start on the front lines. Why? David asked. Emma looked at her mother, then back at David. Because you said executives need to understand what workers experience. I've been thinking about that. I'm going to inherit part of this company someday. How can I run it if I've never worked a real job? Lily nodded. Me too. I want to work in the warehouses or customer service. Something real. Jennifer smiled. They came up with this together. David looked at his daughters, 21 years old, Harvard students. They could have cushy summer internships anywhere. Instead, they wanted to work warehouse shifts. You understand it won't be easy, David asked. Other employees might resent you. They'll know who you are. Good, Emma said. Then we'll have to work twice as hard to prove ourselves. David felt pride surge through him. Okay, but you start at minimum wage. No special treatment. We wouldn't want it any other way, Lily said. Monday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Tyler Webb sat nervously in David's office. Thank you for seeing me, Uncle David. I mean, Mr. Wesley. Tyler, David said gently. What's on your mind? My father called me last night. He's angry that I'm working here. He said I betrayed him. Tyler's voice shook. But I couldn't keep lying. I couldn't keep pretending what he did was okay. David motioned for Tyler to sit. What did you tell him? That he was wrong, that you didn't deserve what he did, and that I was ashamed to be his son. Tyler wiped his eyes. He hung up on me. I'm sorry, David said, meaning it. Don't be. You showed me what a real man does. When you had every reason to destroy me, you gave me a chance instead. That's something my father never did for anyone. Tyler pulled out a folder. I brought these, emails my father sent me, plans he discussed. I know you're dealing with his lawsuit. Maybe these will help. David took the folder. Inside were dozens of emails showing Joshua's planning, his manipulation, his lies, all of it documented by his own son. Tyler, are you sure about this? He's my father, Tyler said. But what he did was wrong. You deserve the truth. After Tyler left, David sat with the emails. Evidence that would destroy any case Joshua might bring. But using it meant weaponizing a son against his father. He called Jennifer. What should I do? What does your conscience say? That I should keep these as insurance, but not use them unless absolutely necessary. Joshua is Tyler's father. That relationship is already damaged. I don't want to make it worse. Then you have your answer, Jennifer said. The next month brought more changes. David implemented the Frontline Work program. He started with himself, spending a week working in one of Wesley Global's call centers. On his first day, he arrived in jeans and a company polo shirt. The call center manager, Sandra, looked skeptical. Mr. Wesley, are you sure about this? Absolutely, David said. Treat me like any other trainee. For 8 hours, David answered customer service calls. Irate customers, complex problems, system glitches. By lunch, his head hurt. By end of shift, he understood why call center workers looked exhausted. How do you do this every day? He asked Sandra. You get used to it, she said. But honestly, it helps when leadership understands what we deal with. During his second day, David took a call from an elderly woman having trouble with billing. As he helped her, something clicked. This wasn't about corporate strategy or profit margins. This was about real people needing real help. Thank you so much, young man, the woman said when her issue was resolved. You've been so patient. David felt more satisfaction from that one call than from signing million-dollar deals. At the end of the week, Sandra pulled him aside. Mr. Wesley, I have to say I was skeptical. I thought this was a publicity stunt. But you actually worked. You actually listened to us. I learned more this week than in the last year, David admitted. Word spread through the company. The CEO actually worked a call center. He wasn't afraid to do real work. Morale shifted, but not everyone was happy about the changes. 3 executives resigned, claiming David was destroying the company culture. What culture? David asked Rachel. The one where executives were gods and workers were servants? Good riddance. Rachel smiled. The employees are calling this the Wesley Revolution. That's a bit dramatic, David said. Maybe, but it's working. Job applications are up 300%. Customer satisfaction scores are climbing. And for the first time in years, people actually seem to enjoy working here. 2 months after the betrayal, David received an unexpected email. It was from Joshua. David, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you, but I need you to know something. I was wrong, not just about the conspiracy. I was wrong about you. I let jealousy poison me. I let pride destroy a friendship, and I lost everything because of it. My son won't speak to me. My wife left. My reputation is destroyed. I'm facing criminal charges, all because I couldn't be happy for my friend's success. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were always the better man. Even when I tried to convince myself otherwise, I knew. I'm sorry. Joshua. David read the email 3 times. Part of him wanted to delete it. Part of him wanted to respond with anger. But mostly he just felt sad. He showed it to Jennifer. What do you feel? She asked. Pity, David admitted, and sadness. We really were friends once, good friends. Are you going to respond? David thought for a long time. Finally, he typed, Joshua, I appreciate your honesty. What you did hurt me deeply, but I also recognize that you're suffering now. I can't offer you friendship. That trust is gone. But I can offer you this. You don't have to be defined by your worst actions. You can choose to grow from this. I hope you do. David. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. That evening, David stood on his penthouse balcony, looking out at the city. So much had changed in just a few months. He'd lost a business partner but found himself. He'd been betrayed but learned mercy. He'd nearly lost his company but made it stronger. 6 months after the betrayal, David Wesley sat in his yellow taxi one last time. He'd kept it, despite Jennifer suggesting he sell it. Tonight he had a specific purpose in mind. He drove through the streets at midnight, thinking about the journey, the discovery, the pain, the rebuilding. Everything had changed, yet somehow he felt more himself than he had in years. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Wesley? A woman's voice, shaking. This is Laura Webb, Joshua's wife. David pulled over. Laura, I'm surprised to hear from you. I know we haven't spoken since everything happened, she said, but I need you to know something. Joshua tried to kill himself last week. David's breath caught. What? He's alive. They found him in time. But David, he's destroyed. The guilt, the shame. He keeps saying he deserves to die for what he did to you. David closed his eyes. Despite everything, hearing this hurt. Where is he now? Psychiatric hospital. He's getting help. But I thought you should know. Not because you owe him anything. You don't. But because I know you loved him once. As a brother. After hanging up, David sat in his taxi, hands shaking. Joshua had tried to kill himself. The man who'd betrayed him, who'd tried to steal everything, was now broken and suicidal. He called Jennifer. Joshua tried to kill himself. Silence, then. How do you feel? I don't know. Sad. Guilty. Angry that I feel guilty. Do you want to see him? David looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The same mirror where he'd first seen Joshua that fateful night. I think I have to. 2 days later, David walked into Riverside Psychiatric Hospital. He'd told no one except Jennifer. If people knew he was visiting Joshua, they'd think he was weak, or foolish, or both. Maybe he was. A nurse led him to a quiet room. Joshua sat by a window, staring out. He'd lost weight. His hair was gray. He looked 20 years older. Joshua turned slowly. When he saw David, tears immediately filled his eyes. You came. Laura called me. I told her not to, Joshua said quietly. You shouldn't be here. After what I did, you tried to kill yourself, David interrupted. Did you really think I wouldn't come? Joshua looked away. I deserved to die. I destroyed everything. My family, my career, our friendship, all because of jealousy and greed. David sat down across from him. Why, Joshua? Really? We built that company together. We were brothers. What changed? Joshua was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Do you remember when we were in business school? You came from money. Not rich, but comfortable. I came from nothing. My father was a drunk. My mother cleaned houses. I wore second-hand clothes. I remember, David said. When we graduated, you got opportunities because of your connections. I had to claw for everything. We started Wesley Global together, but your name went first because you brought in the initial capital, your family's capital. David listened without interrupting. For years I told myself it didn't matter, Joshua continued. We were partners, brothers, but every time someone called it David Wesley's company, something inside me twisted. Every time you got credit for success we achieved together, the resentment grew. You should have talked to me, David said. I know. But pride is a poison, David. It got into my blood and I couldn't get it out. I started keeping score, comparing. Every time you succeeded, I saw it as my failure. Every time you shined, I felt diminished. Joshua turned back to the window. Then I started gambling. Just small bets at first, but I kept losing. The losses got bigger. Soon I owed people, dangerous people. I needed money fast. That's when the idea came to me. Take over the company, force you out, solve all my problems at once, and destroy our friendship in the process, David said quietly. I told myself you'd be fine. You had money, family. You'd bounce back. I convinced myself I was the victim, that I deserved what was yours. Joshua laughed bitterly. Amazing the lies we tell ourselves. David sat with the truth. Part of him wanted to yell, to tell Joshua exactly how much pain he'd caused. But looking at this broken man before him, he felt only sadness. Joshua, I forgave you months ago. Joshua's head snapped around. What? I was angry, hurt, betrayed. But holding on to that anger was destroying me, so I let it go. Not for you, for me. Tears streamed down Joshua's face. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not, David agreed, but I'm giving it anyway, because that's what friends do, real friends. We're not friends anymore, Joshua said. We can't be, not after what I did. David stood. No, we're not. That friendship is gone, but we can be something else. Two men who made mistakes and learned from them. He walked to the door, then paused. Get better, Joshua. Really better. Not just physically. Figure out who you are without the jealousy and resentment. Because that person, the one I was friends with in business school, he's still in there somewhere. Find him again. After leaving the hospital, David drove his taxi through the city. He thought about friendship, betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption. How intertwined they all were. His phone rang. Rachel. Mr. Wesley, you need to see this. What is it? Just turn on the news. David pulled over and opened a news app on his phone. The headline made his breath stop. Former Wesley Global partner Joshua Webb exposes corporate corruption ring. He clicked the article. Joshua had given an interview from the hospital. He'd exposed not just his own crimes, but a network of corporate fraud involving several Atlanta companies. Board members taking bribes, CFOs cooking books, a whole ecosystem of corruption. Joshua had named names, provided evidence, burned bridges he'd built over years of criminal activity. David called the hospital immediately. They patched him through to Joshua's room. Why? David asked. Why expose everything? Because it's time to stop running, Joshua said. Time to face what I did. Maybe it won't matter. Maybe I'll spend years in prison. But at least I'll be free of the lies. This will make things worse for you legally, David warned. I know. My lawyer is furious. But David, you came to see me today. After everything, you came. That showed me more grace than I've shown anyone in 20 years. The least I can do is tell the truth. After hanging up, David sat in his taxi, stunned. Joshua's confession had exposed criminal activity at 5 major corporations. Federal investigators were already getting involved. It was the biggest corporate scandal in Atlanta's history, and Joshua had triggered it all. 3 weeks later, David stood before Wesley Global's board of directors, the same room where he'd confronted Joshua 6 months ago. But now, the board had 8 new faces, people who'd earned their positions through merit, not manipulation. "I've asked you here because I have an announcement," David began. "Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO." Shocked silence. "However," David continued, "I'm not leaving the company. I'm becoming chairman of the board. Our new CEO will be Rachel Morrison." Rachel, sitting in the corner taking notes, dropped her pen. "Mr. Wesley, what?" "You've been running operations for 6 months while I've been implementing reforms," David said. "You know this company better than anyone. The employees trust you. I trust you. The job is yours if you want it." Rachel stood, tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," David smiled. She laughed through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." The board erupted in applause. David watched Rachel accept congratulations, feeling rightness in his decision. Joshua had been wrong about many things, but he'd been right about one. David had become disconnected. He'd been the face while others did the real work. Well, not anymore. That evening, David took his entire family to dinner. Jennifer, Emma, and Lily. They chose a small restaurant, not fancy, the kind of place he'd never have gone to a year ago. "So, you're really retiring?" Lily asked. "Not retiring, transitioning. I'll still be involved, but differently, more strategic, less operational." Emma smiled. "You know what? I'm proud of you, Dad." "For what?" "For changing. Most people can't do that. They get set in their ways. But you actually learned and grew." Jennifer squeezed his hand under the table. "What will you do with all your free time?" David thought about it. "Actually, I have an idea. Remember my taxi?" "You're not driving a taxi again," Jennifer said firmly. "No," David laughed. "But I want to start a foundation, helping struggling families, job training, financial literacy. The things I learned about real people's problems when I was driving. I want to address them." "The Wesley Foundation," Lily said. "I like it." "And," David added, "I want Tyler Webb to help run it." The girls exchanged glances. Emma spoke first. "Dad, are you sure? After what his father did?" "Tyler isn't his father," David said. "He made mistakes, but he owned them. He deserves a chance to do good, to separate his identity from his father's crimes." Jennifer smiled. "You've become quite the humanitarian, Mr. Wesley." "I'm trying," David said. "Joshua's betrayal taught me something. The things I thought mattered, status, recognition, being the boss, none of that actually matters. What matters is impact, legacy, making the world a little better." 1 year after the betrayal, David sat in his study, writing. He decided to document everything: the taxi experiment, the discovery, the confrontation, the aftermath. Maybe it would help someone else facing betrayal. Maybe it would just be cathartic. Either way, he needed to write it. A knock on the door. Jennifer entered with an envelope. "This came for you. It's from Joshua." David opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten. "David, I'm writing from a federal facility where I'll spend the next 7 years. The prosecutors went easy on me because I cooperated fully. I deserve more time. I know that. I heard about the Wesley Foundation, about Tyler working there, about him using his second chance to help others. That's more than I gave him, more than I gave anyone. I also heard you step down as CEO. That surprised me. The David I knew would never walk away from power. But I guess that's the point. You're not the man I knew anymore. You evolved. I stagnated. In here, I have a lot of time to think. About choices, about consequences, about the moment I decided jealousy was more important than friendship. I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do it again." Tyler visited me last week, first time in 6 months. He told me about working at your foundation. about helping families struggling with debt, about teaching financial literacy to kids whose parents are addicts. He's found purpose because you gave him a chance. I don't know if we'll ever speak again. I don't expect it. But I needed you to know. Your forgiveness, even when I didn't deserve it, changed my life. It showed me grace is real. Redemption is possible. Friendship, even destroyed friendship, leaves something beautiful behind. Thank you for being the man I should have been. Joshua. David read the letter twice. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his desk drawer, next to his taxi driver cap. Are you okay? Jennifer asked. Yeah, David said. I really am. That weekend, David stood on stage at the Wesley Foundation's grand opening. 500 people filled the venue. Community leaders, business partners, family who would benefit from the programs. Tyler stood beside him, nervous but proud. A year ago, David began, I learned a painful lesson about trust and betrayal. My best friend tried to steal my company. My business partner of 20 years became my enemy. It was the worst experience of my life. He paused, looking out at the crowd. But it was also the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to evaluate everything, my priorities, my values, my definition of success. David gestured to Tyler. This young man is the son of the man who betrayed me. By all rights, I should hate him. Instead, I hired him, because I learned that everyone deserves a chance at redemption, including people connected to those who hurt us. Tyler stepped forward. Mr. Wesley showed me that my father's actions don't define me, that I can choose my own path. This foundation exists because of that belief, that people can change, that second chances matter, that grace is more powerful than revenge. The crowd erupted in applause. After the ceremony, David found himself alone for a moment. He walked outside looking up at the building, the Wesley Foundation, a legacy built not on business success, but on human redemption. His phone buzzed. Rachel. Boss, stop calling me that. Wesley Global just landed the Thompson account. Biggest deal of the year. I thought you'd want to know. David smiled. That's fantastic. You did it. We did it. This company is thriving because of the culture you built. After hanging up, David looked at his reflection in the building's glass. A year ago, he'd looked in a taxi's rearview mirror and seen his life fall apart. Now, looking at this reflection, he saw something different. A man who'd survived betrayal and become better for it. A businessman who'd learned business wasn't everything. A friend who'd discovered the power of forgiveness. A father whose daughters were learning real-world wisdom. A husband with a partner who'd stood by him through everything. Jennifer appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. What are you thinking about? That Joshua was right about one thing. What's that? David smiled. I did get everything handed to me. I had advantages. I had blind spots. I needed to be humbled. And I'm grateful he tried to steal my company. Jennifer laughed. That's an interesting perspective. Without that betrayal, I'd still be that disconnected CEO. I'd still be chasing recognition and status. I'd still be blind to what really matters. David turned to face his wife. Joshua's betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So what now? Jennifer asked. David looked at the foundation building, then at the city beyond, then at the woman who'd supported him through everything. Now, we help people. We make a difference. We build something that actually matters. Sounds perfect, Jennifer said. They walked back inside together, toward the sound of celebration, toward a future built on lessons learned from betrayal, toward redemption earned through grace. David Wesley had started this journey wanting to understand common struggles. He'd ended it understanding something far more important, that the richest people aren't those with the most money, but those with the most character. That true success isn't measured in profit margins, but in lives changed. That betrayal, painful as it is, can be the catalyst for transformation. His yellow taxi sat in storage now, a reminder of where the journey began. But David didn't need to drive it anymore. He'd learned what he needed to learn. He'd pretended to be someone else and discovered who he really was. He'd been betrayed by his best friend and learned the meaning of forgiveness. He'd nearly lost everything and gained something far more valuable. The businessman who'd disguised himself as a taxi driver had finally arrived at his real destination: authenticity, purpose, and peace. And that, David realized, was worth more than any company, any fortune, any revenge he could have pursued. Joshua Webb had tried to destroy David Wesley. Instead, he'd set him free. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from David's incredible journey? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted? We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please give a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss latest stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes our greatest setbacks become our most powerful comebacks. Stay blessed, stay hopeful, and we'll see you in the next video.